Before we drift into the secret life of Peppermint Butler, I'd love to know where in the world are you watching from tonight? And what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up, let's begin. Now, if you've spent any time in the land of Ooh, you've probably met all kinds of strange characters. A stretchy talking dog, a vampire queen, a bubblegum monarch, and let's not forget the Ice King and his penguin army. But Peppermint Butler, well, he's always been a little different, hasn't he? At first glance, he's just adorable. A little peppermint candy with stubby arms and legs, wearing a tiny tuxedo and a constant, friendly smile. You'd think he's the very picture of sweetness, loyal, polite, and always ready to serve his beloved Princess Bubblegum. But that's the thing with Ooh, nothing is ever quite what it seems. You see, underneath that sugary, sweet exterior, Peppermint Butler has layers, deep layers. The kind of layers you don't expect from a peppermint candy. And as we sink deeper into this sleepy journey together, you'll start to see how his story is one of hidden doors, whispers in the dark, and, well, magic of a very particular flavor. Do you remember that feeling as a kid when you realized that some adults knew more than they let on? Maybe an uncle who always winked at you like he had some grand secret, or that mysterious old neighbor who always seemed to know exactly when it was going to rain. And that's Peppermint Butler. He's the uncle who's been places. Now, as the loyal servant to Princess Bubblegum, Peppermint Butler's role in the Candy Kingdom always seemed pretty straightforward. He'd serve tea, organize parties, clean up after one of PB's many science experiments. But if you watched closely, really closely, you'd catch tiny moments that hinted at something else. In one episode, he casually mentions knowing death personally. Not in a poetic way, either. He literally knows death, like he could send him a letter or make a quick call. Strange, right? Especially for a butler. And it's not like death is just wandering around handing out friendship bracelets. And then there are his friends. Peppermint Butler has weird friends. Ghosts, demons, necromancers. You know, the usual dinner party crowd. It's like going to your grandma's house and realizing she's on a first-name basis with vampires. But here's the twist I really love about Peppermint Butler's story. He's not exactly evil. Yes, he does dark magic. Yes, he summons terrifying creatures. And yes, he occasionally performs blood rituals. But he's doing it all for the good of the Candy Kingdom, or at least, that's how he sees it. It's this beautiful contradiction that makes Peppermint Butler so fascinating. Imagine a librarian who secretly moonlights as a spy, or a kindergarten teacher who solves ancient puzzles by night. That's Peppermint Butler Ooh's adorable peppermint diplomat of darkness. And Princess Bubblegum knows. Of course she knows. She's one of the smartest beings in the multiverse. But she lets Peppermint Butler go about his strange, magical business. Why? Well, perhaps because she needs him. The Candy Kingdom is surrounded by threats, cosmic beings, evil wizards, rival kingdoms, and sometimes sugar and smiles aren't enough to protect it all. Sometimes you need a butler who can casually curse someone's entire bloodline over afternoon tea. But it wasn't always this way. Peppermint Butler wasn't born with this knowledge of the dark arts. Somewhere along the way, this cheerful candy made a decision. To learn, to study, to dive headfirst into the things that others were too scared to even whisper about. Why would someone do that? What was he protecting or chasing? Was it power or something deeper? Maybe a sense of duty or guilt. That's part of the mystery we're unraveling tonight. And I want you to picture it now. Peppermint Butler, alone in the royal kitchens, late at night, the moon casting a pale glow over the polished countertops. Everyone else is asleep, even Princess Bubblegum. But Pep-Butt isn't stirring sugar into tea. No, he's drawing ancient sigils with chalk. whispering words in languages older than ooh itself, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Kinda gives a whole new meaning to Midnight Snack, doesn't it? But the wildest part, even with all of that, he's still lovable, still funny, still weirdly polite. There's a strange comfort in that duality. It's like he's standing at the doorway between two worlds, the sweet, safe world of gumdrops and gingerbread, and the other one, the darker one, filled with shadows and whispers. And Peppermint Butler, well, he's got one foot in both. So, how does a peppermint candy even get involved with the dark arts in the first place? And that's one of those questions that makes you sit back and wonder about the history of the Candy Kingdom itself. We always see Princess Bubblegum as this brilliant, composed ruler, half scientist, half queen. But the people around her, they're not just made of sugar. Some of them have stories. Peppermint Butler's story feels ancient, older than anyone talks about. He wasn't just hired to be a butler. No, it's almost as if he was placed there by fate or by some darker force. Some fans even think Peppermint Butler might have lived for centuries. After all, candy doesn't exactly age the same way people do. And when you're dabbling in forbidden knowledge, time starts to behave a little differently. Does he remember the Mushroom War? The fall of humanity? Has he seen ooh change, rulers come and go, and yet remained at PB's side like a quiet, smiling guardian? It's strange to think that beneath that peppermint shell could be memories of entire civilizations falling and rising again like waves. And through it all, Peppermint Butler just kept setting the tea table, folding napkins, keeping the secrets locked away behind that perfectly polite smile. One of the first real glimpses we get of his true self is in the episode Death in Bloom. Remember that one? Finn and Jake accidentally kill PB's prize plant, and Peppermint Butler leads them to the literal underworld to find Death himself. And here's the twist. Pep-Butt doesn't act like a nervous guide. No, he strolls into the land of the dead like someone walking into their favorite coffee shop. He even greets Death with a casual, "Hey, Death, how's it hanging?" Like they're old co-workers catching up on break. And that's when you realize Peppermint Butler has been doing this for a long, long time. You don't just know Death unless you've been involved in some serious magical business. And this wasn't a one-time thing. Throughout Adventure Time, Pep-Butt constantly drops hints that he's got connections all across the magical and supernatural world. It's almost like the Candy Kingdom is sitting on ancient ley lines of magic, and Peppermint Butler is the secret guardian of that energy. While PB builds candy towers and invents new technologies, Pep-Butt is in the basement, talking to ancient spirits and keeping curses from creeping up the royal staircase. And yet, no one really questions him. Why? Maybe because it's easier not to. Maybe the candy people are happier believing their kingdom is built on sweetness and light, not secret demonic pacts and cursed blood rituals. Have you ever had that feeling where you're visiting someone's house and you just know they have a room they never show guests? The door at the end of the hallway that's always locked, always dusty, and they change the subject when you ask what's inside. Peppermint Butler is that locked door. Always smiling, always friendly, but keeping something massive hidden just out of sight. And the funniest part, he's weirdly charming about it. Even when he's summoning skeletons or making shady magical deals, there's this cheerfulness about him. Like, oh, don't mind me, just casually communing with unspeakable horrors before dinner. It's hilarious, but also a little unsettling. And I think that's what makes his character so special, that balance between cozy and creepy. Now let's talk about his relationship with Princess Bubblegum for a moment. Because that's one of the deepest threads running beneath Peppermint Butler's story. Is it loyalty, duty, or something darker? Think about it. PB is a ruler, a scientist, and honestly, a bit of a control freak. She doesn't suffer fools. If someone were a threat to her kingdom, she'd remove them. No hesitation. But Peppermint Butler, she lets him be. Not only that she trusts him, even knowing about his darker hobbies. That means either she sees his magical abilities as a necessary tool for the survival of the kingdom, or she knows something we don't. Maybe Pep-Butt saved her before. Maybe he knows her secrets, too. It's possible their bond goes deeper than anyone in Ooh realizes. Picture them now, PB in her grand laboratory, surrounded by test tubes and beakers, and Peppermint Butler just behind her, holding a tray of snacks with one hand and a cursed dagger with the other. That's the Candy Kingdom, sweetness and danger all wrapped in a bow. And then, of course, there's the moment when Peppermint Butler's facade slips, even just for a second. There's a scene blink, and you'll miss it, where he lets out this dark, growling voice as he channels magical energy. And in that instant, the cute candy shell melts away, and you glimpse the real Pep-Butt underneath. It's like finding out your childhood teddy bear has been fighting off monsters under your bed every night, and you never even noticed. The idea that someone could walk so easily between two worlds, the world of candy and the world of curses, is what makes him such a perfect bedtime story character. Because it reminds us that sometimes the sweetest things can hold the sharpest edges, and not everything that glitters is entirely good. So let's follow this thread a little deeper, shall we? Imagine Peppermint Butler's early years, not the polished, tuxedo-wearing servant we meet in the series, but younger, curious, maybe even a little reckless. What kind of peppermint candy wakes up one day and decides, you know what? I'm going to learn necromancy? It's funny to picture, right? A tiny, round candy sneaking out of the castle, rolling along cobblestone roads by moonlight, chasing after ancient scrolls and forbidden tomes. What drove him to that? Was it boredom? A hunger for knowledge? Or maybe, did he stumble into something he couldn't ignore? Something that whispered to him from the shadows, offering power, protection, maybe even secrets he didn't want to know but couldn't unlearn. And all the while, he's still serving tea in the daylight, folding napkins into neat triangles, polishing silverware to a perfect shine, smiling politely at Candy Kingdom diplomats. But after sunset, he's practicing dark rituals by candlelight, surrounded by bones and ancient sigils, probably humming cheerful tunes while summoning unspeakable things. One of the strangest and funniest things about Peppermint Butler is how normal he makes it all seem. Like it's just part of his to-do list. Dust the royal chambers, iron the linens, bargain with eldritch beings from the void. It's almost admirable in a way. He's living two completely opposite lives and balancing them both with the grace of someone who's been doing it for far longer than we could guess. But don't be fooled. Just because he's charming doesn't mean he's harmless. We've seen glimpses of what he can do, and it's not all party tricks and spooky jokes. Remember that scene in Wizard Battle, where Peppermint Butler shows up wearing that hood, standing in the shadows, eyes glowing red, revealing that he's not just dabbling in magic. He's good at it. Really good. It's the moment the mask slips a bit and you realize, oh, this isn't just a hobby, this is who he is. But here's something I find really comforting about Peppermint Butler. For all his dark powers, for all the skeleton summoning and underworld dealings, he chooses to stay in the Candy Kingdom. He could have easily run off and built his own creepy tower on some distant hill, become a full-blown dark wizard. But he didn't. He chose to stay by PB's side, to serve, to protect, to help. Why? Because I think deep down, Peppermint Butler believes in something. Maybe it's loyalty. Maybe it's love for the Candy Kingdom, flawed and sugary as it is. Maybe he's guarding something bigger than himself, something ancient and dangerous. Or maybe, and this might be the coziest thought of all, he just really loves his home, and he'll do anything to keep it safe, even if it means making tea and summoning demons in the same afternoon. And speaking of demons, do you remember how easily he interacted with Hunson Abadir, the ruler of the Nightosphere, Marceline's terrifying father? It wasn't just a passing encounter. Pep-But knows Hunson, probably on a first-name basis. It's like discovering that your neighbor, who always waves politely on the driveway, actually has drinks with ancient demon kings on the weekends. And yet, Peppermint Butler never brags about it. He doesn't strut around showing off his magical talents. He lets everyone underestimate him, lets them think he's just the butler. Meanwhile, he's probably saving the entire kingdom behind the scenes while everyone's asleep. That's what I love about his character, the quiet strength. The kind that doesn't need recognition, doesn't need applause, just steady, mysterious, and always ready to step between his friends and whatever ancient horror might be knocking on the door next. It makes you wonder how many times Peppermint Butler has already saved Ooh without anyone knowing. Maybe while Finn and Jake were off on their big adventures, Pep-But was quietly closing portals, banishing curses, and whispering protective spells over the Candy Kingdom's borders, all while wearing that same little tuxedo. There's something comforting about that idea, isn't there? That even when things seem calm on the surface, someone out there, someone unexpected, is working quietly behind the scenes to keep the darkness away. Not because they have to, but because they choose to. So next time you picture Peppermint Butler, don't just see the smiling candy and a bow tie. See the guardian in the shadows, the scholar of ancient spells, the friend who never asks for thanks but is always watching, always ready to step in when the world teeters too close to the edge. Now, sleepyheads, I hope you're tucked in and comfortable, because we're just getting started. Let's drift even deeper into the strange magic Peppermint Butler practices, shall we? We've already seen glimpses of his powers on the surface little spells, summoning skeletons, chatting casually with death, knowing ancient rituals like someone might know bedtime songs, but the deeper you go, the more unsettling it gets. Peppermint Butler's magic isn't just spooky for fun. It's tied to something much, much older, and it's forbidden for a reason. Have you ever wondered why so many of his magical dealings seem to involve debt? Every time we see him working with dark powers, there's this sense of trade, of bargains being made. That's not light magic. That's ancient transactional magic that doesn't come for free. Think about it. The world of Ooh is filled with strange beings, but few of them deal in the kind of underworld economy that Pep-But swims in so comfortably. He's the kind of candy who doesn't just borrow power, he owes things. And that's what makes his sweetness so eerie. Behind that smile might be a whole list of names and deals scratched into ancient, crumbling ledgers filled with promises that must someday be paid. It makes you wonder, what has Peppermint Butler already given up to gain his power? What prices has he paid that we never saw on screen? Could there be a darker hidden reason he's so loyal to PB and the Candy Kingdom? Maybe it's not just love or loyalty. Maybe it's because the Candy Kingdom itself is bound by one of his ancient bargains. I love thinking about these hidden threads, these quiet, invisible debts that ripple beneath the sweetness of the surface world. And the crazy thing is, Peppermint Butler never seems worried about it. He's calm, relaxed, cheerful even. It's as if he's been playing this long game for centuries. He knows the rules better than anyone. And while others scramble around, panicking over every magical twist and turn, Pep-Bud is already 10 moves ahead, like a quiet chess master, smiling politely over his teacup. And speaking of long games, do you remember Root Beer Guy? Just an ordinary citizen of the Candy Kingdom who eventually gets pulled into strange events because of his natural curiosity. It makes me wonder how many times Peppermint Butler has had to gently nudge candy people away from dangerous things they weren't ready to understand. Oh, Peppermint Butler isn't just a dark magician. He's also a protector. He chooses to keep people innocent. Oh, he could easily reveal the truths of the universe to everyone around him, but he doesn't. Why? Because knowledge real, ancient knowledge is heavy, and not everyone should have to carry it. And then there's that moment that really stuck with me. Remember when Peppermint Butler literally rebuilds himself as Dark Peppermint Butler in the future? After losing his original body, he returns even more powerful, cloaked in deep robes, with glowing eyes, fully embracing the darker side of his abilities. It's as if that cheerful peppermint surface was just a mask all along. A necessary mask to function in the Candy Kingdom. But when that's gone, the full power comes through. And yet, even then, Peppermint Butler isn't evil. He's still protecting his home, still standing by the people he cares about. It's not about power for the sake of power. It's about protection, about preparation, about doing whatever needs to be done to keep the delicate sweetness of the Candy Kingdom from being swallowed by the darkness around it. It's such a powerful image, isn't it? The smallest, sweetest-looking character being the one holding the ancient door shut, whispering spells into the keyhole to keep everything else at bay. And here's the most fascinating thing of all. No matter how deep Peppermint Butler's connections run, no matter how terrifying the spells or ancient the creatures he deals with, there's always this odd, warm sense of humor about him, like he's in on the joke of the universe. As if all this ancient evil, all these eldritch secrets, are just part of the job for him, like folding napkins or preparing a fancy cheese tray. That's why Peppermint Butler makes such a great bedtime story character. He reminds us that appearances can be deceiving, that power can be gentle, and that sometimes the quietest people are the ones standing between us and the wild, strange unknown. And as you're here now, cozy under your blankets, I hope you find that comforting thought resting with you. Even in a strange and mysterious world, there are guardians watching quietly, working gently, smiling sweetly. So next time you see a peppermint candy on a holiday plate, maybe give it a little nod of respect, because you never know. It might just be watching over you, too. All right, sleepyheads, let's take one more slow, steady breath. In, out, and I'll see you in the next segment. Hey there, sleepyheads. Still with me? Good. Let's go deeper now. Because the surface of Peppermint Butler's story is just sugar. It's beneath that polished surface that the strange flavors begin to bloom. Tonight, we're talking about schools of magic. And not the kind where you sit in desks learning how to turn apples into oranges. I'm talking about secret places, forgotten places, caves with echoing whispers, libraries where the books growl at you, old towers where the walls are made of teeth, places no one in the Candy Kingdom ever talks about. And Peppermint Butler didn't just visit these places. He studied there. While the other candy people were busy singing songs about gumdrops and frosting, Pep-Butt was kneeling on cold stone floors, drawing ancient circles with powdered bones, learning syllables older than the stars. Let's start with one of the strangest parts of his magical education, Wizard City. It's chaotic, wild, dangerous. The wizards there don't exactly take kindly to Candy Kingdom folks wandering in, asking about polite necromancy. But Peppermint Butler wasn't there to make friends. He was there to learn. And oh, did he learn. He didn't just take surface-level classes like basic fireballs for beginners. No, he went deep. Do you remember when he was banned from Wizard City, not just for practicing dark arts, but for being too good at them? That's Pep-Butt. Always taking things a little further than anyone expects. Imagine the scene. A perfectly round peppermint candy in a tidy tuxedo, quietly walking through halls filled with explosions and magical duels while ancient wizards mutter nervously behind their beards, and then banned. Exile. Why? Because even they didn't want to deal with how deep his magical curiosity went. But Peppermint Butler didn't stop there. Wizard City was just one stop along a much stranger, more secret path. Beneath the cute frosting of the Candy Kingdom lies an underground. Not sewers, not tunnels, but a network of forbidden knowledge buried right beneath the sprinkles and gumdrops. Places only those with real magical talent can access. And Pep-Butt was fluent in those paths. He studied with teachers who were more shadow than shape. Creatures older than kingdoms, beings who didn't care about candy or crowns, only knowledge, and the cost of gaining it. And I like to think that during all this studying, he still carried himself the same way he does in the show. Polite, soft-spoken, almost cheerful. But behind those polite bows and soft chuckles, there was someone learning how to change reality itself. One of the most curious things about Peppermint Butler's magical education is how practical it all feels to him. Other characters chase magic for glory, for treasure, or out of desperation. But for Pep-Butt, it's just normal. It's like someone picking up knitting or gardening. Oh, this weekend I'll be practicing trans-dimensional blood sigils, and on Monday I'll be preparing PB's lunch meeting. Just part of the weekly routine. But don't let that fool you into thinking it's safe. The spells he was learning were the kinds of spells that could tear holes in the sky. Magic that shouldn't be handled lightly. And yet there he was, handling it like someone folding socks. Calm, precise, efficient. Now here's something I want you to picture. While Peppermint Butler is calmly serving tea by day, imagine that right beneath the floorboards of the royal dining hall, there's a hidden staircase. And that staircase leads down. Down into flickering candlelight, down into whispering halls, down to places where the air hums with forgotten spells, and the stones remember every incantation ever spoken upon them. And that's what makes his story so fascinating. It's not just about power for fun. It's about preparation, about duty. Peppermint Butler wasn't chasing danger. He was getting ready for it. While everyone else was laughing at candy puns and throwing tea parties, Pep-Butt was preparing for the big threats. The ones that don't come with invitations. The ones that creep instead of crash. And still, nobody really noticed. The candy people saw him as that polite little butler. Even PB, brilliant as she is, didn't always seem to grasp how deep his knowledge really ran. And that's where we'll go next. Into the heart of his forbidden education. The things he learned that maybe, just maybe, should never have been learned at all. There's something strangely beautiful about the way Peppermint Butler balances both his worlds, the sweet and the sinister. The delicate art of folding napkins, and the delicate art of folding space. And yet, no matter how dangerous his magical studies became, he never abandoned his role as a butler. It's almost like the two things went hand in hand for him. Service and sorcery. Imagine him deep underground, standing before a roaring flame of ancient magic, glowing runes flickering around him, and then calmly dusting off his sleeves before returning to the kitchen upstairs to prepare PB's tea. But let's talk more about who taught Peppermint Butler these dangerous arts. We already mentioned Wizard City, but that's just scratching the surface. Peppermint Butler didn't learn his strongest spells from schools. No, he learned them from entities. Do you remember Hunson Abadir, Marceline's father, Lord of the Nightosphere, the embodiment of chaos, hunger, and raw devouring power? Well, Peppermint Butler knows him. Not like you know your neighbor, more like you know a business partner. They've done deals, traded favors. And it's terrifyingly casual. Hey, Hunson, mind tearing open the sky for me real quick? Thanks, buddy. Now ask yourself this. What kind of person casually networks with ancient eldritch beings? The answer is Peppermint Butler. And not only does he know Hunson, he's summoned him. Called him into the world like someone dialing an old friend's number. Summoning the literal Lord of Evil just because, well, he needed to win a magical battle. And after that, tea time. Biscuits, anyone? It's honestly hilarious in the strangest way. This perfect, round little peppermint, dressed in a tidy black suit, is casually breaking open dimensional barriers to invite ancient cosmic terrors over for brunch. And nobody bats an eye because, well, that's just Pep Butt. But Hunson Abadir wasn't the only teacher. Some of Peppermint Butler's teachers don't even have names. They're being so old, so forgotten, that even the wizards of Ooh don't remember them. We're talking about things that teach in whispers, things that don't speak in words, but in ancient, humming vibrations that settle into your bones. Can you imagine learning spells not from books, but from feelings? From patterns of cold air across your skin? From the way shadows fall differently when you pronounce certain vowels? That's the kind of deep magic Peppermint Butler was chasing. Magic that predates language. Magic that doesn't fit neatly into scrolls or textbooks. And yet, he learned it. Quietly. Patiently. Without anyone really noticing. The scary part? We don't know how far it went. We only see little pieces of it in Adventure Time. Small flashes. Brief hints. It's like glimpsing the edge of a massive iceberg before it disappears beneath the waves again. And here's where it gets even stranger. Peppermint Butler's dealings with death itself. Remember that scene with Death, the skeletal hooded figure who oversees the whole afterlife situation? They know each other, casually, like co-workers. Not enemies, not rivals, just acquaintances. It's like Pep-Butt keeps a running list of all the powerful beings in existence. Not out of fear, but because he knows they might come in handy later. There's one moment that always sticks with me. That casual way Pep-Butt says things like, "Oh, I know Death." Not I've met him once, not I studied him from afar, I know him. How many people in the entire multiverse can say that? How many polite candy butlers sip tea while also holding the ancient spells that can tear apart the veil of life and death itself? And yet, through all this, he still chooses to return home. He could easily go full dark sorcerer mode, vanish into the void, start summoning chaos beings just for fun. But he doesn't. He goes back to folding napkins, shining shoes, and preparing meeting rooms. That's what makes Peppermint Butler different from the typical dark wizard story. He's not drunk on power. He's not desperate to rule the universe. He just wants to be ready. Ready to protect his kingdom. Ready to protect PB. Ready to protect his home. It's almost poetic, really. Like the most powerful spell he's ever learned is the spell of patience. And as you're lying here now, listening to this, maybe you can feel that soft comfort, too. That idea that sometimes the strongest people are the ones who don't show it. The ones who sit quietly in the background, smiling gently, carrying the weight of secret knowledge without needing anyone to know. And when things get scary, when ancient doors start creaking open, they'll be there, calm, smiling, ready. Now, one of the most fascinating things about Pep-But's magical life is how calculated he is with it. He doesn't waste his spells. He's not dramatic like some of the other wizards we meet anew. No flashy entrances, no cackling while lightning strikes behind him. No, his magic is surgical. Precise, quiet, thoughtful. And that makes it scarier. Think of all the magical beings in Adventure Time who scream, who explode, who wave staffs around. Peppermint Butler doesn't need that. He can casually whisper a spell under his breath that might unlock a prison door in another dimension, and then go refill your teacup like nothing happened. That's what makes him dangerous in a very different way. It's not about raw strength, it's about knowledge. He knows which threads to pull to unravel the whole tapestry. And you know what's wild? Even death listens to him. There's that beautiful, weird moment where Pep-But negotiates with death itself, not in fear, but like an old coworker asking for a favor. It's like, hey, could you send this person back to life real quick? Appreciate it. Thanks. No rush. There's this calm confidence in everything Peppermint Butler does. It's the confidence of someone who knows that even though they look harmless, they've already made friends with the shadows you're afraid of. And while we're here, floating gently through this soft story, I want to tell you about one of my favorite Pep-But moments. Do you remember when Peppermint Butler summoned a portal to the Nightosphere using his own blood? That's not casual magic. That's forbidden, ancient, slightly terrifying magic. And he did it with this cheerful little smile, like he was about to bake cookies afterward. Blood magic is one of those topics that usually gets thrown around in dark fantasy stories, but Adventure Time, being as brilliant as it is, slipped it into the background of this colorful candy world, with Peppermint Butler standing at the crossroads of both. It's funny, isn't it? You have this adorable peppermint candy, soft-voiced and sweet. And beneath that surface, there's blood sigils, ancient curses, and conversations with eldritch horrors that would make most wizards go pale. But here's the thing I love most about Peppermint Butler's story. Through it all, the dark arts, the forbidden knowledge, the friendships with monsters, he's loyal. That's the part that gets me. All this power, all this dangerous secret knowledge, and where does he put it? Right back into service. Right back into protecting Princess Bubblegum. Right back into defending the Candy Kingdom. He's not in it for personal gain. He's not trying to conquer anything. He's guarding the sweetness of his world with the sharpest, most dangerous tools imaginable. That contrast. A smiling butler, folding napkins with one hand while holding ancient cosmic runes in the other, is kind of beautiful. And honestly, it's kind of comforting. Knowing that someone can walk both worlds, the sweet and the terrifying, and still choose to protect others. Oh, it makes you think about all the quiet people in your own life, doesn't it? The ones who might not be loud, but who carry strength in ways we don't always see. Peppermint Butler is prepared. Prepared for things most of the Candy Kingdom will never even know about. And he doesn't do it for applause. He does it because it's necessary. Because when things go wrong, when dark dimensions start creeping in, or ancient beings wake up, it's not going to be the Candy Kingdom's knights or soldiers standing at the door. It's going to be him. One peppermint candy, bowing politely, ready to unleash spells older than the stars. That's the heart of Pep-But's story. A butler, a dark magician, a protector. All wrapped up in peppermint swirls, hiding the sharpest secrets under the softest smiles. Let's gently unwrap the last layers of this story together. We talked about what Peppermint Butler studied. We've talked about who taught him. But now we need to explore why. Why go this far? Why risk everything exile, corruption, friendships, even his very soul for knowledge most beings wouldn't even dare to approach? The answer is protection. Peppermint Butler wasn't hungry for glory or wealth or fame. He wasn't some twisted villain in disguise scheming for personal gain. No. Pep-But's journey into the shadows was always about being prepared. He knew something that most of the Candy Kingdom didn't. That being sweet, being cute, being cheerful wouldn't save them when the real dangers arrived. Candy people are fragile, soft, happy, yes, but naive. And Pep-But saw further. He knew that beyond the candy walls, beyond the bright skies, there were things waiting. Things that smiled at sweetness because they wanted to consume it. And Peppermint Butler couldn't allow that. So he took it upon himself to learn the kinds of magic that no one else wanted to learn. Not because it was fun, not because it was easy, but because someone had to. There's a weight to that decision. Imagine carrying that burden every day. Folding napkins for royal banquets with the same hands that once traced blood sigils on the floor of forgotten tombs. Bringing PB her afternoon tea while carrying ancient curses locked quietly in the folds of your jacket. He chose to bear that weight for everyone else. It's kind of beautiful, isn't it? Choosing to carry the difficult, terrifying burden so that others don't have to. It's like being the umbrella during a storm. Everyone else stays dry, but you're the one holding steady against the wind. And yet even Peppermint Butler wasn't immune to the risks of what he was doing. There's always a price for forbidden knowledge. We see hints of that during the Puhoy episode and later in Crossover and the Dark Cloud. There are moments where his magic almost consumes him, where the polite butler starts to fade and the dark sorcerer underneath threatens to take over completely. But you know what's powerful? He pulls back, time and time again, even after tasting that much power. Pep-But chooses balance. He remembers who he is. He doesn't run away from the darkness, but he doesn't let it devour him either. That's a rare thing in stories about magic. Usually, characters who dip into forbidden powers either fall completely or stay naive. Peppermint Butler walks right down the center. A delicate balance between the polite servant and the terrifying sorcerer who could probably tear open reality if he really wanted to. It's such a powerful lesson in a way, that you can face darkness without becoming it. That you can learn about the harsh, dangerous parts of life and still stay soft where it matters. Still stay good. By the time we see Peppermint Butler fully leaning into his magical life, we realize he's not just a butler anymore. He's a guardian. And not just for PB or for the Candy Kingdom, but for Ooh itself. For the fabric of reality. For everyone. And even though he doesn't wear armor or carry a sword, he's one of the most powerful protectors in the entire show. A peppermint candy. With the weight of cosmic secrets behind his smile. So, as you lay here now, maybe half asleep or maybe just floating peacefully in that calm bedtime space, remember this about Peppermint Butler's journey. It's not about fear. It's about preparation. It's about love expressed in the most unusual way. Because sometimes the sweetest smiles hide the strongest warriors. And sometimes the smallest candies hold the biggest secrets. Let's gently wander further into Peppermint Butler's strange, secret world. Because now, we're stepping beyond the world of the living. That's right. Tonight, we're going to talk about death. Not in a scary way, don't worry. But in that Adventure Time kind of way, where death is strange, awkward, sometimes funny, and always, always mysterious. And Peppermint Butler, he's been dealing with death like it's just another appointment on his schedule. It's one of the wildest, quietest parts of his story. You see, while other characters in Adventure Time might fear the unknown, Peppermint Butler knows the unknown on a first-name basis. Literally. Let's go back to that amazing moment in the episode Death in Bloom. Finn and Jake accidentally kill Princess Bubblegum's prized plant. And Peppermint Butler calmly tells them, "Oh, you'll have to go to the land of the dead to get her back. I'll summon death for you." Like it's no big deal. Like asking someone to pass the salt at dinner. And then he does it. Right there. In that quiet room surrounded by pink walls and candy decor, Pep-Butt traces a glowing summoning sigil, opens a swirling black portal, and literally calls the Grim Reaper into the Candy Kingdom. Just casually. "Hey, Death, it's me, Peppermint Butler. Need a favor." Let's pause for a second. That's huge. Think about how often in fantasy stories you see the Grim Reaper, or death itself, treated like this unknowable, terrifying force. But here, death just shows up like a slightly annoyed coworker. "Yeah, what do you want?" And Peppermint Butler just smiles that little peppermint smile, bowing politely as if he's asking someone to make room at the tea table. But here's what makes it fascinating. The relationship. This isn't the first time they've spoken. It's not even the first favor between them. Peppermint Butler knows death on personal terms. It's not master of the underworld to him, it's just death. Can you imagine being so deep into the magical underworld that the literal personification of mortality knows your name? It's both hilarious and deeply unsettling in the best Adventure Time way. But Peppermint Butler isn't reckless with these powers. He never seems to summon death just for fun. It's always purposeful. And beneath the casual smiles and teacup gestures, you can feel the weight of it. It's like Pep-Butt understands that life and death are not two opposing forces. They're two partners. Two sides of the same coin, constantly flipping, constantly turning. That's part of why Peppermint Butler's character works so well in Adventure Time. The show itself is all about contradictions, colorful on the outside, deep and strange underneath. And Pep-Butt embodies that perfectly. Candy and curses, laughter and death, sweetness and secrets. And then there's the part that really gives me chills, in that good bedtime story kind of way. Peppermint Butler wins against death. Do you remember that? He sets up the deal for Finn and Jake, but he's not afraid of death's power. He negotiates, he plays the game. He's clever about it, thoughtful, careful, and it works. And that's the thing about Peppermint Butler. He doesn't fight his enemies in the usual way. He outsmarts them. He uses wit instead of war, tea instead of swords. It's like he understands that brute strength might win a battle, but cleverness can change fate itself. And honestly, isn't that such a lovely, gentle reminder before bed? That sometimes life's biggest challenges aren't beaten by shouting or fighting. Sometimes they're handled with calm words, a steady mind, and a polite smile. So here's Peppermint Butler, calmly chatting with death like old colleagues, carefully arranging deals, not for his own sake, but for others. For Princess Bubblegum, for the Candy Kingdom, for Finn and Jake. It's that quiet kind of bravery. Not loud, not showy, but steady, thoughtful, and so much stronger than it looks at first glance. All right, let's keep floating with this story soon. Because while Peppermint Butler knows death, there's something even bigger out there. Something older. And Pep-But's magic reaches even further than you might think. The real mystery of Peppermint Butler isn't just that he knows death, it's that he knows things most characters in Adventure Time don't even have words for. Think about it. When Pep-But talks to death, it's not like some scared mortal begging for favors. It's familiar. They have a relationship almost like two magicians at the edge of a very strange chessboard. And death doesn't seem surprised by him, as if they've been circling each other for a long time. But Peppermint Butler's power doesn't stop at knowing death. No. It goes beyond that. Because Peppermint Butler is connected to forces that make death seem like middle management. Let's talk about the Nightosphere. Yes, the swirling, chaotic dimension of pure madness and darkness, ruled by Hunson Abadir, Marceline's terrifying father. Now, most beings would do anything to avoid the Nightosphere. It's not just scary, it's cosmic horror wrapped in black fog and screaming portals. But Peppermint Butler? He opens a gateway to it with a ritual of his own blood. Not once and multiple times. Do you remember that quick scene in The Suitor when he's performing forbidden rituals under the Candy Kingdom? It's like this tiny glimpse into how far Pep-But's magical studies go. He's not just dealing with death, he's dealing with what comes after. Or maybe what was before. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What else does Peppermint Butler know that he's not telling anyone? What other beings or dimensions might owe him favors, or worse? What ancient entities might whisper his name while they sleep beneath reality itself? And yet, with all of that swirling around him, with all that potential for chaos, Pep-But keeps it together. He stays kind, polite, cheerful. He brings Princess Bubblegum tea with that same soft smile, like he didn't just finish tracing forbidden sigils on the castle floor moments before. It's almost like Peppermint Butler represents this strange, beautiful idea that even when you know terrifying things, even when you walked in dark places, you can still choose to live with grace. You can still serve. You can still protect. And let's not forget, Peppermint Butler doesn't do this for power. He doesn't want to rule. He doesn't want to replace death. He's not hunting for thrones or riches or cosmic recognition. He just wants to make sure that the people he cares about, Princess Bubblegum, the Candy Kingdom, even Finn and Jake, stay safe. Even if they never know how close they came to disaster. Even if they never see the danger slithering beneath the surface. Even if they never realize how often Pep-But stood alone in the dark, whispering spells that held the universe together just a little bit longer. That's what makes him different from other sorcerers. He's not hungry for more. He's prepared for worse. And it makes me think, Sometimes the strongest people in your life might not be the ones standing at the front of the room giving speeches or showing off. Sometimes they're the ones in the corner folding napkins with steady hands, quietly ready to fight for you if the need ever comes. Steady, quiet strength. So while Peppermint Butler might be making deals with death and calling on powers from beyond the veil of ordinary life, his heart is steady, his smile is gentle, and his loyalty unbreakable. So far, we've talked about Peppermint Butler summoning death, forming strange alliances and performing quiet, powerful rituals beneath the surface of the Candy Kingdom. But now, let's move into the consequences. Because here's the thing, magic like that. Playing with the balance between life and death, that doesn't come free. There's always a price. The more you look into Peppermint Butler's life, the more you realize he's not untouched by the dark powers he commands. Even though he smiles politely and sips tea with delicate hands, the weight of what he knows presses down on him. And eventually, that weight leaves scars. We first get a real glimpse of that in Nemesis, remember? That's the episode where Peacemaster, another magic user, comes to the Candy Kingdom determined to destroy the evil lurking within its walls. And who's he after? Not Princess Bubblegum, not Finn, not even the villainous creatures of Ooh. No, he's after Peppermint Butler, because Peppermint Butler radiates dark magic. Even though Pep-Bud is cheerful, friendly, and loyal, the magical community knows there's something unnatural about him now. He's gone too far into the forbidden. And yet, even in that confrontation, Peppermint Butler isn't angry. He doesn't lash out or lose control. What does he do? He outsmarts Peacemaster. He traps him in his own spells, proving once again that wit beats brute force every single time. But that moment shows us something more important. Peppermint Butler's secret life isn't invisible anymore. People are starting to notice, and that's dangerous even for someone as careful as him. There's another layer to this too, not just how others view Peppermint Butler, but how he views himself. Think about how exhausting it must be, always walking that thin line. Every smile hiding knowledge of curses, every polite gesture layered with the weight of ancient secrets. Imagine carrying that burden day after day, knowing that one wrong word or one misstep could unleash horrors that most of your friends can't even imagine. That's lonely. Even surrounded by candy people and cheerful banquets, Peppermint Butler is alone in what he knows. And here's the beautiful, heartbreaking part. He chooses that loneliness. For them. For all of them. He willingly carries that solitude because someone has to. It's almost like he's the ultimate protector, standing guard over a world too sweet, too innocent, to defend itself. He's the last line between the ordinary joys of the Candy Kingdom and the dark, swirling forces on the other side of the veil. But like any protector who works in the shadows, he gets misunderstood, judged, even hunted. And still, Pep-Bud keeps going, calm, focused, steady. It reminds me of that gentle idea we talk about sometimes, that real strength doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be about glowing swords or fiery battles. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is carry something heavy without complaining. To hold the door open for others, even if it means you stand in the storm alone. That's Peppermint Butler, the cheerful servant, the terrifying magician, the unsung protector. It's this beautiful contradiction that makes his character so perfect for bedtime stories. Soft and dark at the same time. comfortable and mysterious. Simple on the surface, yet carrying oceans of secrets beneath. And yet, with all this knowledge, all these risks, all these ancient, whispered names echoing in his ears, Peppermint Butler remains, at his heart, loyal, always returning to that teapot, always bowing gently when Princess Bubblegum enters the room, always smiling with that peppermint grin. It's such a beautiful thought to carry with us as we float through sleep, that you can know the hardest, scariest truths and still choose kindness, still choose service, still choose love. All right, sleepyhead, let's gently bring this chapter to its close together. You're doing beautifully. Let's softly float through the rest of this part of Peppermint Butler's story, nice and easy. Because as powerful, as clever, and as polite as Peppermint Butler is, even he can't keep the darkness at bay forever. Eventually, the risks he's been carrying, the rituals, the secrets, the friendships with death and beyond, they all start to catch up with him. That's what leads us to one of the strangest, most unexpected twists in Peppermint Butler's life, his rebirth. Do you remember Come Along With Me, the grand finale of Adventure Time? The great gum war is raging. Chaos is unfolding across Ooh, and who's there in the Candy Kingdom's council? Peppermint Butler, still calm, still loyal, still quietly helping Princess Bubblegum navigate disaster. But after the war, after the giant explosion of gum and chaos and weirdness, something odd happens. Peppermint Butler is reborn. That's where Wizard City comes in. In that spin-off, we meet a new Peppermint Butler, a younger version. No longer the confident, powerful dark wizard we knew, but a child again. And yet, something lingers inside him. Something ancient. Something that remembers. It's like his story comes full circle. From servant to sorcerer to student. Learning magic again from scratch in Wizard City, surrounded by teachers and classmates who have no idea who he used to be. And honestly, that's one of the most beautiful parts of his story. Because what does Peppermint Butler do with this second chance? Does he go after power again? Does he try to take over the magical world, now that he's free from responsibility? No. He studies. He learns. He starts over. It's as if all the pain, all the burdens of his secret life have given him something precious, the humility to begin again. Not chasing power, but chasing understanding. Not for revenge, not for glory, just because he loves the craft. And sure, the old magic is still in there. He still remembers things he shouldn't, knows ancient spells his teachers can't even comprehend. But instead of using that knowledge recklessly, Pep-Butt walks a careful, thoughtful path. It's growth. Real, quiet, beautiful growth. Isn't that such a comforting idea to take with you as you drift toward sleep? That no matter how much darkness you've seen, no matter how many mistakes or strange paths you've wandered down, there's always room to begin again, to start fresh, to be both the student and the master all at once. That's Peppermint Butler, the sweet servant with terrifying powers, the master sorcerer with a gentle heart, the ancient wizard who's still willing to go back to class and raise his hand with a shy smile. I love that, don't you? It makes the world of Adventure Time feel even bigger, even warmer, full of strange dangers, but also full of second chances. So here we are, sleepy friend. We've wandered through Peppermint Butler's strange friendships with death. We've peeked into the hidden consequences of those dark rituals. And we've watched as Pep-Butt gracefully accepts the wildest adventure of all, starting over. And through it all, he stays loyal, steady, kind. A servant of tea, a master of curses, and a soft, peppermint smile walking between worlds. All right. Take a slow, deep breath for me. Let it out gently. You're doing so well. We're going to keep drifting through this sweet, strange tale together soon. In the next part of this sleepy journey, we'll uncover even deeper secrets. Because not everything Peppermint Butler's done has been revealed. What else is lurking in his past? What other bargains were struck under the moonlight, with candles flickering and ancient words spoken beneath his breath? Don't worry. We'll get there soon together. We've been walking alongside Peppermint Butler through deals with death, strange bargains, and quiet moments of loyalty. But now, we're going to open a door to something even stranger, something deeper. Let's drift softly into the shadows of the Nightosphere. Now, you might remember the Nightosphere from some of the wildest, weirdest episodes of Adventure Time. It's this swirling dimension of pure chaos, like nightmares dipped in syrup, stretching endlessly into dark clouds and twisting stairways. And who rules the Nightosphere? None other than Hunson Abadir, the cosmic, terrifying father of Marceline, the vampire queen. Hunson is one of those beings in Adventure Time who's not just scary, he's ancient. Older than kingdoms, older than empires. He's a being of hunger, consuming souls, devouring life, existing almost like a black hole in the shape of a being. And here's the question that brings us back to Peppermint Butler. What on earth is a polite little candy butler doing making connections to something like that? Well, Pep-Butt doesn't just know about the Nightosphere. He's opened doors to it, willingly. One of the clearest glimpses we get of this comes in The Suitor. In that episode, Peppermint Butler performs a dark ritual right underneath the Candy Kingdom. Understand yet? Others wonder if Peppermint Butler owes the Nightosphere something a favor, a bargain made long ago. Or maybe he just likes the access. Because here's the truth. Magic, especially forbidden magic, is tempting. The more you know, the more you want to know. And the Nightosphere? It's basically the biggest, darkest, weirdest library of forbidden knowledge you could imagine. It's like if you mixed the universe's worst horror stories with a spell book written by someone who really liked chaos for breakfast. And Pep-Butt, being the curious candy that he is, couldn't resist. But here's the thing I love most about all this. Even though Peppermint Butler is opening doors to cosmic chaos, he never lets it consume him. He stays polite, controlled, methodical. It's like he's standing at the edge of a hurricane, calmly sipping tea while storms rage around him. A butler at the edge of the abyss. Isn't that a strange, wonderful image? A soft, peppermint candy? With one hand holding a silver tray, and the other hand tracing glowing runes into ancient stone. Softness and danger, all wrapped into one. And yet this connection to the Nightosphere isn't just a curiosity, it's dangerous. Because opening doors to realms like that means things can slip through. Things that don't care about the Candy Kingdom, or friendship, or cozy bedtime stories. Things that only want chaos. And Peppermint Butler, he knows that risk. But he does it anyway. Why? Because he's playing a long game. He's always 10 steps ahead. Protecting Princess Bubblegum, protecting protecting the entire balance of things. It makes you wonder. What else does Peppermint Butler have hidden behind polite smiles and cheerful tea trays? All right, sleepy friend. We've only just cracked open this particular door. The Nightosphere has more secrets. and Peppermint Butler's connections to it go way deeper than just one summoning. So, why does Peppermint Butler need these connections to the Nightosphere? What's the point of risking it all, his reputation, his safety, his soul, just for a few spells whispered in a demonic tongue? Some fans believe it's because Pep-Butt isn't just protecting the Candy Kingdom from outside forces. He's protecting it from within. Think about it. The Candy Kingdom, for all its cheerful colors and smiling faces, has a dark undercurrent. Princess Bubblegum, as brilliant and kind as she often seems, has a habit of playing God, creating life forms, controlling entire societies, engineering people like they're ingredients in a recipe. It's all very sweet on the outside, but underneath, it's complicated, morally gray. Maybe Peppermint Butler knows that better than anyone. Maybe he understands that to protect a kingdom, ruled by science gone wild, you need the opposite force on your side. Ancient magic, dark power, knowledge that doesn't play by the rules of chemistry or biology. And the Nightosphere? That's pure chaos. The perfect counterbalance to Princess Bubblegum's careful logical order. It's almost poetic when you think about it. Bubblegum works with formulas and control. Peppermint Butler works with the wild, untamed forces of ancient magic. Together, they keep the Candy Kingdom standing not because they're alike, but because they're opposites, working in uneasy harmony. That brings us back to the rituals. When Peppermint Butler draws those sigils and opens those swirling gateways beneath the castle, he's not doing it because he's power-hungry. He's maintaining balance. He's the silent hand making sure that if things ever spiral too far in either direction, too much order or too much chaos, there's a way to pull it back again. But here's the delicate part. Playing with forces like the Nightosphere means you're always on the edge of disaster. One wrong word, one incorrect line in a summoning circle, one ancient demon who decides they don't feel like following the rules today, and the whole system could collapse. Peppermint Butler knows this, and yet he keeps going. Not because he's reckless, but because he's brave. Not the loud, sword-wielding kind of bravery. The quiet kind. The kind where you carry the heavy burdens so others don't have to. And isn't that such a gentle lesson to tuck into your thoughts as you drift toward sleep tonight? That real strength isn't always about being loud or being seen. Sometimes it's about doing the hard things alone in the dark for people who will never even know you saved them. That's Peppermint Butler's way. And yet the more you sit with this, the more you realize just how isolated that makes him. No one thanks Pep-Butt for his summoning circles. No candy citizen throws parades for the creepy rituals he performs under the full moon. To them, he's just the butler, the background character. Invisible, overlooked. But to us, to you and me, drifting through the story together, we know better. We know that behind that tiny peppermint swirl is a mind sharpened by countless nights of study, ancient bargains, and quiet determination. We know that underneath that polite bow is a warrior of balance, standing at the edge of the abyss with steady hands. It's strange, isn't it? That the one who serves tea and folds napkins might also be the one holding the very fabric of reality together. It's almost comforting in a funny way that someone so small, so sweet, so seemingly ordinary can carry such extraordinary weight. And still, there's more to learn. More mysteries hiding between Peppermint Butler and the Nightosphere. What other beings has he spoken to? What prices has he paid? What parts of himself has he quietly given away, with no one around to notice? We've talked about Pep-But's careful balancing act with the Nightosphere, that delicate dance between order and chaos. But what's even more curious is how personal some of these connections might be. See, there's this interesting thread the fans have picked at for years, Peppermint Butler's relationship with Hunson Abadir himself. It's subtle, but it's there. Remember that weird little moment in Death in Bloom when Pep-But casually opens a portal to the land of the dead and calls in a favor from death? That tells you everything about how far his connections go. But the Nightosphere is a different league altogether. In the episode Nemesis, Peppermint Butler's darker side comes into focus when Peacemaster, a self-appointed destroyer of dark magic, targets him. Peacemaster knows. He senses that Pep-But's dabbling in something unnatural. But what really makes that episode stick is that Peppermint Butler doesn't deny it. He leans into it. He knows he's not some innocent little candy. He knows he's playing with forces that would terrify the other citizens of the Candy Kingdom. But it's almost like he's accepted that this is his role to play. No apologies, no excuses, just silent, steady responsibility. And if you think about it, Hunson Abadir himself is a father. A powerful being from a realm of chaos, yes, but also a figure with family ties to someone as deeply emotional and complicated as Marceline. Could that be why Peppermint Butler maintains those ties to the Nightosphere? Not just for power, but for understanding. Because deep down, Pep-But seems to know something. You can't fight darkness by pretending it doesn't exist. You fight darkness by understanding it, learning its shape, its language, its weight, knowing how to speak to it calmly without fear. And maybe, just maybe, that's why he studies, why he summons, why he listens. Not to embrace chaos, but to keep it at arm's length, tamed, familiar. It's like keeping a dragon in your basement dangerous, yes, but also a kind of protection if you know how to feed it properly. That's Peppermint Butler's relationship to the Nightosphere. Not wild, reckless power, not villainy, control. Control born of study, caution, and deep respect for the things that most people would run away from screaming. But even with all his caution, there's risk. Because when you build relationships with entities like Hunson, Abadir, or other Nightosphere creatures, they expect things in return. Favors, sacrifices, loyalty. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What has Peppermint Butler given up in exchange for this knowledge? What parts of himself did he trade away in those long-forgotten bargains? A piece of his soul? A promise whispered under candlelight in a language no one speaks anymore. Maybe that's why Pep-But always looks slightly tired behind that peppermint smile. Why his politeness sometimes feels like it's hiding exhaustion. Not physical tiredness, but the kind of weariness that comes from carrying secrets for too long. The kind of tiredness that isn't fixed by sleep, only by understanding. And yet, even though we don't know the full price Peppermint Butler has paid, one thing's clear. He's willing to carry that burden alone. No grand speeches, no drama. Just silent sacrifice beneath the polished shoes of a royal butler. It's kind of beautiful, isn't it? The idea that someone small, quiet, overlooked, could be the one standing between sweet, cheerful order and cosmic chaos, holding the balance steady with one steady hand. And here's another strange twist. Peppermint Butler doesn't fear the Nightosphere. Where others see terror, he sees potential. Potential for growth. Potential for balance. Potential for protecting those he cares about, even if they'll never fully understand how much he's done for them. All right, sleepy friend. Let's keep floating with this thought. that even in the darkest places there are those who walk carefully, kindly, choosing knowledge over fear. So far, we've talked about the why of Peppermint Butler's connection to the Nightosphere, his careful balance between chaos and control, his silent sacrifices, his possible deaths. But now, let's take a step back and think about the impact of those choices. Because when you invite chaos into your life even carefully, even with respect, it changes you. We see little glimpses of that in Peppermint Butler's behavior. Remember how, in Nemesis, when Peacemaster confronts him, Pep-But doesn't panic. He doesn't argue. He smiles. That soft, knowing smile like someone who's been playing this game far longer than anyone realizes. And when Peacemaster tries to attack him with light magic, Peppermint Butler doesn't fight with fists or spells. Instead, he uses strategy. He turns Peacemaster's own family, his own children, against him, corrupting them with dark magic. Isn't that chilling? A polite, candy butler standing there calmly while a man's life falls apart right in front of him. And yet, at the very end, Peppermint Butler gives them back. He returns Peacemaster's children unharmed, as if to say, I could have destroyed you, but I didn't, because I chose not to. That's the line Peppermint Butler walks. Power with restraint, darkness with mercy, chaos with control. He's not afraid of darkness, but he refuses to become it. And maybe that's why he fits so strangely, yet so perfectly, in the world of Adventure Time. He's not like Finn, who fights with swords and bravery. He's not like Bubblegum, who builds with science and order. He's something else. The one who knows what happens when the cheerful world they've built starts to fray at the edges. And the one who's willing to quietly, silently do what's necessary to hold it together. Think about it like this. While everyone else is out there saving kingdoms and battling monsters, Peppermint Butler is working behind the scenes, stitching reality back together with ancient thread, worn thin by centuries of forbidden knowledge. No glory, no credit, just the endless, exhausting work of keeping the darkness in check. It makes you wonder, does Princess Bubblegum know how deep Peppermint Butler's ties go? Does she choose to look the other way? Or does she trust him so completely that she doesn't need to ask? Maybe that's part of their relationship's strength. They're both willing to carry the weight the other doesn't want to touch. Bubblegum handles the bright, scientific progress. Peppermint Butler handles the shadows crawling underneath it all. A strange partnership, but one that works. And here's one last soft thought to take with you as you drift deeper into your dreams tonight. What if Peppermint Butler likes being underestimated? What if he enjoys that no one suspects the sweet little butler of having the most dangerous connections in the entire multiverse? Maybe that's his greatest trick of all, hiding unimaginable strength beneath polite smiles and tea trays. It's a reminder that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one holding up the whole world behind the scenes. That real strength doesn't need to be loud. Real strength can be soft. All right, we'll let the Nightosphere close its swirling, shadowy doors for now. But don't worry, Peppermint Butler's story is far from over. There are still more secrets, more adventures, more soft mysteries waiting ahead. Let's drift gently into the next chapter of Peppermint Butler's story, one of my favorite parts. This one's about change, about starting over, about second chances even when you've carried shadows for what feels like forever. Let's begin with a soft breath, in and out. And now we're back, floating in the soft glow of memory and mystery. Now, if you followed Adventure Time all the way to its later seasons and the Distant Land specials, you'll know that Peppermint Butler's story doesn't end with him being a shadowy butler performing secret rituals in castle basements. No, it actually takes a really unexpected turn. Because sometimes, even those who carry the darkest burdens get a strange, wild chance to start over. And that's exactly what happens to Peppermint Butler. After the events of Come Along With Me, the Candy Kingdom goes through a massive change. It basically gets destroyed and reshaped into something new. And with that change comes a wild little twist. Peppermint Butler gets reborn. Not metaphorically, I mean literally. He's turned into a child again. Not just small in stature, but in mind, too. The old, dark, secretive Peppermint Butler. Gone. What we're left with is baby Peppermint Butler. No forbidden knowledge, no haunting debts, just a cute, nervous candy kid with a swirl on his head and an awkward smile. It's weird, right? Seeing someone who once held the fate of kingdoms in his hands suddenly struggling to make friends and pass simple wizard school classes. It's like watching a mighty oak tree turn into a sapling again. All that strength, all that history gone, or at least hidden for now. But here's the beautiful part. This rebirth isn't just some cosmic joke. It's a chance. A rare, almost magical opportunity for Peppermint Butler to start fresh. To choose what kind of person he wants to become this time around. And that's exactly what Wizard City, one of the Distant Lands specials, explores. We see this younger version of Pep-Butt, often called Pep by his classmates, trying to find his place in a world where nobody remembers his old secrets, his old power, or his dark connections. He's just another awkward student at wizard school, fumbling spells, getting picked on, and honestly, feeling a little lost. It's kind of sweet, isn't it? The thought that even the people who seem the most confident, the most mysterious, the most powerful, might secretly be just as unsure of themselves as anyone else. And here, Peppermint Butler isn't the terrifying secret magician behind the throne. He's just a kid who wants to be good at something. He wants to make friends. He wants to find out who he really is without all the shadows trailing behind him. But of course, life isn't that simple. Because deep inside Pep, even though he doesn't remember it yet, that old, powerful, dark Peppermint Butler still exists. It's like a ghost, a whisper, a shadow moving behind his soft candy eyes. And sooner or later, that old self starts pushing its way back to the surface. That's what makes Wizard City so compelling. It's not just about wizard school hijinks. It's about identity. About whether people can truly change or if we're always going to be dragged backward by who we used to be. And for Peppermint Butler, that question is heavy. Because the version of himself that's trying to break free isn't just awkward or angry, it's dangerous. That old Peppermint Butler was willing to make dark deals, summon terrifying beings, and bend the world to his will for the greater good. Is that who Pep really is underneath the nervous smile? Or is there a new Peppermint Butler trying to be born, one who can keep the strength of his old life without falling into the shadows again? It's a soft kind of heartbreak watching Pep wrestle with this. Because haven't we all felt that before in one way or another? That tug of war between who we were and who we wanted to be. So here we are with Pep. That awkward little peppermint swirl with big eyes and even bigger expectations weighing on his tiny candy shoulders. And the thing is, he doesn't even fully know why. Why he feels that tension deep down. Why he sometimes catches himself doing something clever or magical without knowing how he knows it. It's like muscle memory from another lifetime. And as Wizard City unfolds, you can feel that tug of war growing stronger. other characters start whispering. Hints of the old Peppermint Butler start surfacing. And Pep's sweet, nervous Pep begins to realize that there's something inside him that's not entirely his own. It's him, and not him. A double life unfolding again, but this time within the same body. Now here's where it gets beautifully complicated. See, when we think about redemption stories, we often imagine clean slates, fresh starts. But for Peppermint Butler, redemption doesn't mean forgetting who he used to be. It means facing it. Looking his old self in the eye and deciding, what parts of you do I want to keep? And what parts do I need to let go? That's exactly what happens when Pep finally confronts the shade of his former self in Wizard City. It's haunting. Like coming face to face with the choices you made long ago, the ones you regret, the ones you still don't understand, and the ones you might secretly miss. And in that moment, Peppermint Butler doesn't run. He doesn't deny that dark version of himself. He owns it. He steps forward and embraces his past, not as something to erase, but as something to integrate. It's not about becoming someone else entirely. It's about becoming someone whole. Think about how powerful that is. It's not just a battle of magic, it's a battle of identity. Can you take your mistakes, your missteps, your shadows, and still choose to be good? Can you acknowledge everything broken and still move forward? For Peppermint Butler, the answer is yes. But it's not easy. And that's what makes his story resonate so deeply. Because real redemption isn't flashy. It's not fireworks and applause. It's quiet. It's hard. It's the long, slow process of choosing kindness. Again and again and again. Even when the darker choice would be easier. By the time we reach the end of Wizard City, Pep isn't just that awkward candy kid anymore. He's something more. He's a fusion, old and new, dark and light, mistake and hope, all tangled up together like swirling peppermint stripes. Not perfect, not flawless, but real. And here's something I love about that ending. There's no grand announcement that Peppermint Butler has won or lost. There's just this quiet acceptance of who he is. It's like standing at the edge of a forest. The journey isn't over. But you finally stopped running from your own reflection. And you know, that feels right. Because isn't that what life really is? Not about perfection. Not about erasing your past. But about standing in the middle of your story, shadows and all, and saying, this is me. I'm still here. And I'm still trying. Now, one of the most interesting parts of Wizard City is how Peppermint Butler's struggle with identity mirrors something much bigger in Adventure Time itself. Because Ooh, as a world, is constantly shifting between chaos and order, between destruction and renewal. First there was the Mushroom War, turning the planet into something new. Then kingdoms rise, fall, get rebuilt. Characters grow up, fall apart, come back together. It's a constant, endless cycle of breaking and beginning again. And Peppermint Butler's personal story? It fits perfectly inside that cycle. He's not an outsider to this pattern. He is that pattern in candy form. What makes Pep's story special is that it asks one of the softest, hardest questions of all. If you got the chance to start over, but with the weight of your mistake still inside you, would you take it? Would you risk remembering the darkness, just for the hope of making something good out of it this time around? For Pep, the answer seems to be yes. Even when his old self creeps back, even when the dark whispers from his past call to him like familiar friends, Pep chooses to push forward as his new self. But here's something gentle to think about. Does redemption mean changing who you are? Or does it mean understanding who you've always been? That's what Peppermint Butler seems to be figuring out in Wizard City. Not erasing his past. Not pretending to be a different person. But instead saying, I've made mistakes. I've done things I don't fully understand. But I'm still me, and I can still choose to do better. It's not clean. It's not simple. And it's definitely not the kind of magical rebirth story where everything is suddenly perfect. It's messy, like life usually is. And that's what makes it feel true. Even Princess Bubblegum, the person who once trusted Peppermint Butler with the hidden foundations of her entire kingdom, doesn't step in to fix him. She lets him work it out on his own. And that's beautiful too. Because sometimes the best thing the people around us can do is let us grow. Let us stumble. Let us find our own way forward, even if they could make it easier. It's a reminder that growth isn't something anyone can do for you. It has to come from the inside. Even if you're a polite candy butler with a swirling peppermint head. And watching Peppermint Butler in Wizard City, I found myself thinking about how strange and lovely it is that someone who once dabbled in the darkest forces in the multiverse is now standing awkwardly in wizard school robes trying to get a spell right. It's like seeing a powerful ancient dragon reincarnated as a confused little caterpillar. But that's what makes the story special. Because it shows us that no one is ever just their past. We can all begin again, even if we still carry echoes of who we used to be. We're almost at the edge of this particular part of Peppermint Butler's journey. And here's where things get really special. See, by the end of Wizard City, Peppermint Butler does something that not everyone can do when faced with their darker selves. He doesn't destroy his old identity. He doesn't banish it forever or pretend it never happened. He embraces it, but not in a way that means he's giving in to it. It's more like finally shaking hands with your shadow. Finally saying, all right, you're part of me, but you don't have to control me anymore. And isn't that one of the bravest things a person or a peppermint candy can do? Think about it for a moment. How often do we run from the parts of ourselves we don't like? The mistakes we've made. The choices we wish we could take back. The versions of ourselves we hope nobody ever remembers. But Peppermint Butler shows us something different. You can face that older version of you. You can look that mistake in the eye, breathe softly, and say, I see you, I know you, and I'm still going to choose to grow. It's not about erasure. It's about integration. The old Peppermint Butler, full of secrets and shadows, doesn't disappear. But Pep the younger, kinder, awkward student version now understands that he can carry that history without letting it define who he is now. And that is where the idea of redemption really shines. It's not about pretending your past didn't happen. It's about deciding what comes next. It's about realizing that even if you've stood in dark places before, you don't have to live there anymore. The ending of Wizard City doesn't scream victory. It whispers it. Quiet strength. Quiet hope. A slow, steady kind of magic. And Peppermint Butler walks forward not as a spotless hero, but as someone beautifully whole. Not flawless, not fixed, but complete. A swirl of light and dark, sweetness and shadow all spiral together in that little peppermint body. And honestly, doesn't that feel more true than any perfect fairy tale ending ever could? So when you think about Peppermint Butler's story, remember this gentle thought. You don't have to be perfect to move forward. You don't have to erase who you were to become who you want to be. You can carry your whole story with you, mistakes and victories, missteps and triumphs, and still choose to keep walking toward the light. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. Now we arrive at a quiet place, a resting spot where we can sit for a moment and just wonder together. Because after everything we've seen, all the secret magic, the betrayals, the hidden deals, the messy rebirth, one question still lingers softly in the air like mist curling around candy trees. Was Peppermint Butler ever truly good? It's a big question, and not the kind you can answer with a simple yes or no. In fact, that's what makes it such a perfect question for a bedtime story like this. Because real life, isn't clean or simple or easy to label, and neither is Peppermint Butler. Let's start by thinking about what good even means. Does being good mean always following the rules? Always being polite? Never making mistakes? If that's the definition. Well, Peppermint Butler fails spectacularly. He's loyal, yes, fiercely so. But he's not afraid to break rules, bend moral lines, or even summon terrifying beings if it means protecting Princess Bubblegum or defending the Candy Kingdom. He's made alliances with death. He's summoned demons from other dimensions. He's worked behind PB's back more than once, always with that polite little smile on his peppermint face. So, if being good means being squeaky clean, nope, that's not Peppermint Butler. But maybe, just maybe, that's not what goodness really is. Let's drift back to something we've seen over and over in Adventure Time. The idea that morality is messy. Heroes make mistakes. Villains sometimes have beautiful, broken reasons for doing what they do. Even someone as purely sweet as Princess Bubblegum has her moments of cold calculation. Peppermint Butler fits right into that beautifully tangled web. He's not good in the fairy tale sense. He's good in the complicated sense. The kind of good that isn't always pretty on the outside, but often comes from a place of loyalty, love, and desperate need to protect the people you care about. In fact, I think that's why Peppermint Butler scares some of the characters in Ooh, because he's polite on the outside, but terrifying underneath. That contrast makes people uncomfortable. It's like holding a perfectly wrapped piece of candy and realizing it might have something sharp hidden inside. But you know what? That's what makes Peppermint Butler feel real. Because most of us, in one way or another, have parts of ourselves that don't match perfectly. We're soft in some ways, sharp in others. We try to be kind, but sometimes we stumble. We want to protect the people we love, even if that means making hard choices no one else understands. That's Peppermint Butler in a peppermint shell. A swirl of sweetness and danger, loyalty and secrecy, light and shadow, and maybe that's what real goodness actually looks like. Not perfection, not constant politeness, but trying again and again to do what feels right, even when it's complicated, even when it's hard, even when nobody else understands why you're doing it. And isn't that kind of beautiful? The more you think about it, the more Peppermint Butler's story starts to feel like a reflection of Adventure Time itself. Because that's what Adventure Time has always been about. Taking big, complicated ideas and wrapping them in bright colors, candy people, silly jokes, and soft moments of sadness. Good and evil? It's never that clear. Think about Marceline and her 1,000-year-old pain. Think about the Ice King and the heartbreaking tragedy behind that silly crown. Think about Princess Bubblegum, building her kingdom with kindness and cold science. Peppermint Butler fits right in with that pattern. He's sweet, he's terrifying, he's funny, he's unsettling. He's all of it at once. And honestly, isn't that how most of us feel sometimes? We're taught that we should be either good or bad. But in reality, we're all just mixtures. Sometimes brave, sometimes scared, sometimes generous, sometimes selfish, sometimes strong, sometimes breaking quietly under the surface. That's why Peppermint Butler's story stays with you. Because it's real in a soft, sneaky way. Let's take a quiet moment to think about his loyalty to Princess Bubblegum. It wasn't just the loyalty of a servant doing his duty. It was devotion. Even when Peebee's plans got dangerous, even when she made cold choices, Peppermint Butler stood beside her. Was that loyalty good? Was it selfish? Was it noble? Maybe it was all of those things twisted together in that little peppermint swirl of his. But here's where the heart of the question really lies. Peppermint Butler's actions were often dark, but they weren't for personal gain. He didn't summon death because he wanted more power. He didn't study dark magic just to impress anyone. He wasn't chasing treasure, or fame, or kingdoms. He did what he did because he believed it was the best way to protect his home, his friends, and the kingdom he loved. That doesn't make his choices clean. It doesn't make them safe. But it makes them human, or candy in this case. Sometimes being good isn't about having clean hands. It's about standing in the middle of the storm, making choices you know might be wrong, because doing nothing would feel worse. And that's Peppermint Butler. Always standing quietly in the background, always ready to do the dangerous thing so others don't have to. Now let's float back for a second to Wizard City. Remember how awkward he seemed, how unsure of himself? That's not the Peppermint Butler of old, confident in dark rituals and secret summoning circles. That's someone trying to be good in a world that remembers his mistakes. It's gentle. It's painful. It's beautiful. And isn't that the real shape of redemption? Not erasing your mistakes, but choosing to build something better, one tiny, awkward step at a time. Let's talk about that final lingering feeling whenever Peppermint Butler's name comes up. It's trust, isn't it? Can we trust someone like Pep? Can someone who's done so much in the shadows really be called good? It's strange because Peppermint Butler is both the most loyal and one of the most secretive characters in the whole show. He doesn't go around telling everyone what he's done. He doesn't brag about the things he's seen. His whole life has been one long, careful balancing act between helping and hiding. And that makes it tricky, doesn't it? Because trust usually means openness, honesty, clear communication. But Pep, he's the opposite of that. So how do you trust someone like that? Maybe the answer is that Peppermint Butler teaches us something deeper about trust. It's not just about knowing everything. It's about understanding why someone does what they do. You might not know all their secrets. You might not fully understand their choices, but you can still sense the shape of their heart if you look closely enough. And Peppermint Butler's heart, underneath the dark spells and hidden rituals, was always facing the Candy Kingdom, always facing home. That's what separates him from the villains of Adventure Time. Peppermint Butler wasn't hungry for power for himself. He didn't want to rule. He didn't want control. He just wanted to protect. And sometimes, protection requires doing things that no one else is willing to do. Think of the moments when Princess Bubblegum needed something dangerous done. Who was standing right there, ready to act, ready to handle it? Peppermint Butler. The polite, sweet, oddly terrifying butler who could serve tea with one hand and summon the forces of the underworld with the other. And here's something soft to hold on to as we drift. Maybe good isn't about staying perfectly clean. Maybe it's about being willing to carry the burdens others can't, so they don't have to. Maybe it's about facing the darkness so others can stay in the light. It's messy, it's hard, it's uncomfortable. But it's also beautiful in that strange adventure time kind of way. Now let's take a gentle breath and go even softer. Was Peppermint Butler ever truly good? I think the real answer is this. He was good enough. Good enough to stand between his friends and danger. Good enough to use his skills to protect instead of conquer. Good enough to try again, even after he messed up. And in a world as tangled and uncertain as ooh, good enough might just be the best kind of good there is, as you drift deeper into sleep. Remember this gentle truth. You don't have to be perfect to be worth loving. You don't have to erase your past to deserve kindness. You don't have to be spotless to be good enough. You just have to keep trying. And Peppermint Butler, well, he kept trying until the very end. All right, sleepyhead. We've made it all the way here together. Let's wrap this gentle journey with one last soft reflection before we drift fully into the quiet of the night. When I think about Peppermint Butler now, after everything we've explored, I don't just see a candy butler with secret powers anymore. I see someone who represents a part of all of us. The part that smiles politely while carrying burdens nobody else knows about. The part that's done things we're not proud of. But also the part that wants to do better. The part that learns from mistakes. That awkward, stumbling, beautifully human part that keeps getting up again and again, no matter how messy things get. And that's why his story feels so special, tucked here in the sleepy corners of our minds tonight. It's a reminder that we don't have to hide from our past. We don't have to be ashamed of every wrong step we've taken. What matters most is what we do next. Just like Peppermint Butler reborn, awkward, unsure, but still trying, still learning, still helping in the only way he knows how. And maybe, just maybe, that's the kind of good we should all aim for. Not perfect, not spotless, just real, honest. Good enough to keep going. Now, before we drift fully into the cozy world of sleep, let's take one last soft breath together. In and out. Gentle, easy. Let your shoulders relax, your jaw unclench, your whole self soften like melting candy on a warm afternoon. You've wandered through secret chambers and ancient spells with me. You've stood at the edge of dark forests and looked into glowing ritual circles. And now, you're here, resting, surrounded by softness and safety. Thank you for staying with me through this entire sweet, strange journey into Peppermint Butler's secret life. It's been wonderful having you here exploring these curious corners of adventure time together. If you enjoyed this sleepy adventure, don't forget to leave a soft little comment below. Tell me where you listened from, or if Peppermint Butler is now one of your favorites. It's always lovely seeing your thoughts. And if you haven't already, feel free to join this sleepy little community by subscribing. There are so many more bedtime journeys waiting just around the corner. But for now, let's close the door on Peppermint Butler's story. Let the echoes of ancient spells fade softly into the background. I'll let the candlelight in those secret wizard chambers flicker down to a warm glow. And let your mind rest, knowing that even the strangest stories can hold the gentlest truths. You're safe. You're doing beautifully. And I'm so, so glad you're here. Until next time, sweet dreamer. Good night.